Getting ready to change the water pump in my 2008 Wrangler. I'm gonna break these 13 millimeters loose. Put the punch back in. Get to this cracked free, so I can spin these out by hand. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take the serpentine belt off. Push down the adjuster. Try that out. That's Steve's new ratchet. It's pretty good. So take the 3 bolts off the water pump pulley. So in this video, Steve's the cameraman and Tony's the mechanic. Yep. Change the pace.
Yeah. Probably gonna have to pry that, give it a little shock with a pry bar. We'll get a pry bar, we'll pry it right in between the bolt here and the pulley, and then that'll pop right off.
This is kind of rusted on there. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of penetrating oil. You can pry it off, but you want to be careful at the same time. I don't want to bend the pulley at all.
Sounds like it just started to come there, huh? It's just pressed on.
There it goes. I had my doubts, but Steve was right.
You can leave one bolt loose and it'll crack loose and not fall on the pan on you.
Yeah, I like the pan action though.
So now you've got the good view of the water pump down here, and it's got a little extension leg that goes over to the passenger side. And they're, I think they're all 10 millimeters, Tony, right?
Yeah, they look like they're 10s.
Yeah.
Alright, yeah. Alright, let's zip these off. I'm gonna crack these all free.
And now we didn't drain the petcock on this because it's a pain to get at it, and it's a pain to take lower radiator hose off. So we have a really wide stainless steel pan underneath this that should catch all the antifreeze. So as he cracks these loose, it'll start trickling some coolant. And he drove the vehicle here, so what he's gonna do now is he's going to crack the radiator cap loose so that we don't have any purge coming out. So just crack the cap loose a little bit.
You typically don't want to do this on the vehicle side.
You're just going to crack it to the first notch loose. That'll let the pressure off. It's not taking it right off. So that's going to relieve some pressure on it, but not taking it right off. Hey. Now when he goes over to take the bolts out of the water pump, it's not going to squirt. It should be releasing the pressure. Yeah, it already relieved the pressure. He's got the cap right off.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to go around and crack all these loose. I'm just going to kind of work my way around and evenly crack them loose.
We're going to set Tony up with an air ratchet after we crack all these loose by hand. You want to make sure that you just don't put the air ratchet on and bang them off and then break a bolt. bolts are basically like a 6mm thread with a 10mm head, so they're not very big.
Yeah.
So cracking them loose like he's doing it with the hand ratchet is kind of the way to go.
And I get the serpentine bolt right out of my face. It's a pain. Okay. There's one down here. And here comes the antifreeze.
Sounds like it's draining into the pan too. That's a plus.
Yeah.
Tony's got a lift kit on this Jeep with big fat tires, and he's standing on the stand leaning over this. This is kind of a pain to do. The bumper stick's way out on this vehicle. Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to do.
I can get this one right here. There's one. And I'm short, and Steve's taller than me. So it's like Mutt and Jeff working on this thing.
So what we can do is after he gets these bolts cracked loose,
Yep.
we're gonna let the thing drain down into the pan, and we're gonna use an air ratchet to zip the bolts off.
Okay, so I'm going to zip these 10mm bolts off with the ear wrench. And it's got 2 more bolts left. Alright, so I'm just going to give it a little tap to break it free. There it goes. So what I need to do now is get rid of some of the old gasket material. Big, thick chunks you can kind of peel away with your fingers. And then this is aluminum, so you've got to be careful with it. You don't want to use like a Scotch-Brite pad or whatever it is, because it can kind of gouge your aluminum. I'm going to go over it really light with a razor. I'm not digging into it. I'm just barely scraping it to get some of the crud off of it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to switch to this gasket cleaner Steve has. It's rubber, and is it rubber?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
rubber.
so it's kind of made for this stuff. And I don't you probably can buy these on Amazon or something.
Yeah,
I'll find a link on Amazon. I'll put these in the description of the video. I love using this thing. It cleans the area really, really good, and it's not going to harm the surface.
And we bought the little grinder at Harbor Freight for like $7. It's, you know, a little loud. The bearing's a little loud on it, but you know what? You get what you pay for, and it works okay though. And Tony, after he's done scraping it, he's going to go and clean it with the tool. And if you just got some sandpaper at home, whatever you use just to clean it, but like Tony said, you don't want to use something too abrasive and damage the aluminum. So he's going to clean this all up, and once he gets the gasket scraped, we'll show you how he's using the tool. Yep.
So I'm going to work my way around and hit it with this little cleaner.
Alright, we'll show you when it's all cleaned up, but that's the gist of it.
Yep. So these are all cleaned up. The area's all cleaned up for the water pump. So that little the rubber wheel works really good, and you know, it's pretty delicate on the surface. So I'm gonna go wire wheel those bolts for the water pump. I'm gonna clean those all up, and I'll get back to you in a minute. Right, so I have my new water pump ready. Here's my old water pump right here. This one's a little different in the sense that the older one had a plastic impeller. This one's an AC Delco one, and it has a metal impeller. So I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a thin coat of bearing grease around it before I put the gasket on. So when we tighten it up, we can see it ooze out of the cracks. We'll know that we've hit all these bolts, and we've tightened them all up, because you can kind of see it, visually see it coming out. Kind of an old trick, right, Steve?
Yep. And he's just using a little bit of grease, not using the big blobs.
Yeah, you don't need to go crazy.
It's going to help stick the gasket on there, hold it in place.
Like Steve said, it'll help prevent that gasket from sliding around on you too. Alright, put the gasket on.
I'm just going to put a thin coat on the other side of the gasket and we'll be ready for install.
And line up your holes. And then when the engine gets warm, this will all melt off, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yep.
You've been doing them like this for years, right, Steve?
Yes, I have. Thermostat gaskets, water pump gaskets, O-ring seals when you're putting them on. Use dielectric, or you can use a regular grease, a little thin coat of it. Tony seems to think that some of the bolts are thicker than the other ones.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I don't think that's the case. I think they're all 6 millimeters. But
All right.
he took them all off one at a time, and he kept them in line so he knew which ones they went on.
Yeah, put them in the position that they came off in my old pump, so I can put it on the truck, transfer them over. So they're gonna go right back into the same hole that they came out of.
So he'll put 2 bolts on, like on the top corners,
Yep.
so that he can get it in place, and then he'll catch all the bolts before he starts running them down. And we can run them all down by hand and then snug them with the ratchet, and we'll make sure everything's sealed. The paperwork suggests that you do it in a cross pattern,
Right.
you know, top, bottom, and we'll follow that.
So let's put the new water pump in place, and I put a couple bolts in there to hold my gasket in place. And I always want to catch these by hand, like Steve was saying.
He's going to catch those 2 by hand, and then he can let go of the pump, and he'll get all the other bolts started by hand, and then we'll tighten them all down evenly.
Alright, so I've got those caught, and I'm going to get the rest of the bolts in the same way, and we'll tighten them down. Okay, so I caught all these bolts by hand, and I'm going to go around in a cross pattern and snug them up first. You don't want to run these down, you kind of just want to do what I'm doing with the ratchet. Take your time with it.
He cleaned all his bolts on the wire wheel.
Yep. This one down here. Hopefully you can get to it. It's not a pain. It's right there for you.
Yeah, tension pulley is real close to it.
Yeah, but that's not a big deal.
Snug, he's just going to go all around in a clockwise pattern to make sure he didn't miss any.
Yep.
Just to double check them, and then that'll finish up the mounting of it.
So we just gotta finish tightening up all those bolts, and you can see some of the grease oozing out of the cracks between the housing and the water pump, so we know we have even pressure on all those bolts. I'm gonna put a pulley back on the water pump. Line up your bolt holes. Get these caught by hand. Job wasn't that bad of a job. The water pump was 48 bucks, and then the temp sensor, I think it was about 20 or 21 or something like that.
And what did you say, the gauge was bouncing around?
Yeah, so the gauge inside the cab, the water temperature gauge, was going to like a quarter, and then it was going to full, and then it would bounce down all the way to cold. And a lot of times, if you have a bad temperature sensor, it can cause that problem. So we're replacing that. We replaced the thermostat, which is up here. The other day, it's 2 bolts. I think they were 10 millimeters. You can pop that off. Super simple to do. So when you're doing a water pump, it's a good idea to change the thermostat at the same time, right, Steve? Because at that point, they're probably pretty old.
It's a maintenance thing.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be second guessing it. You open up the coolant system. We're going to put new coolant in it. And, you know, for the price for the water pump thermostat and the temp sensor, you're done with it. And the gauge isn't going to bounce anymore. So he's gonna snug up these 3 13 millimeters as much as he can, and then we're gonna slip the belt back on. And at the beginning of the video, Tony put a punch in to stop the pulley from turning, so that we could snug it up. So after we get the belt on, we'll put the punch back in so we can do the final tightening on these bolts.
I'm gonna put my ratchet in the tensioner. Press down out like this. And snap one thing, Steve, really kind of fits tight in there.
Yeah. So he's got the tensioner on, the pulley and everything. Now, is this, yep, that's in the right spot. So
This isn't, though. I've got to slide this over the top a little bit more.
yeah, or we bar the motor over, it'll go. But try and tighten those 13s and see if the motor turns over, and then that belt will fall right in place. Because you're going clockwise anyway, so.
Yep. Tighten these 3 13 bolts.
Yeah. Okay, of course it ain't barring over now.
All right, that's all right.
So, yeah, you can just put the ratchet back in there.
And I just.
He loves taking that new ratchet out of that.
Ah, what a pain. It's a nice ratchet, but. There it is. There we go. All right, now the belt's on. That's a lot better. There we go.
All right, a lot of guys slide them over the idler pulley last. Tony likes to fight with it, so that worked out though.
Yeah.
So it's on the crankshaft. Make sure everything is good. It's on the power steering, the AC compressor. So, and you got the 13 millimeter bolts tight on the water pump.
Yep.
And we're just gonna fill the coolant now, and that should be it. And we're gonna pressure test it, and we'll run it outside and make sure the gauge stays nice and steady.
Thanks, guys.